direct proportion. Now, proportion is very, very similar to ratio. What you'll find with proportion, perhaps, is that the units are different. So in this particular question, in example 1, if 8 chocolate bars cost £6, calculate the cost of 10 chocolate bars, you can see that we're talking about an amount of chocolate bars and an amount of money. So they're not the same units. What you would have found with ratio was they pretty much always were the same units that you were talking about. So that's the difference. It means you can't have a total column, but otherwise they can be treated in pretty much the same way. So let's work on this first example. I'm still going to go with my consistent approach of a table, but because I don't have the same units this time, I've got chocolate bars and pounds, they're not the same unit, I can't really use the total column in the far end. But I am still going to use the table. It's a personal choice of mine because I like the structure it gives me. So here I've got chocolate bars and here I've got pounds. I could put a colon in the middle just like with ratio if you like. I'm just going to put my data into that. So I've got 8 chocolate bars and I've got £6. I can't do a total. You can't add an amount of chocolate bars to an amount of money. They have to be the same units in order to do that. So this will be blank. I'm going to work with the same principles though. As long as I multiply or divide those values by the same amount each time, I can still do that. It will still work. So let's think about it. I want 10 chocolate bars. At the moment I've got 8, and that doesn't go into 10 in a particularly easy way. I could do it that way, but I think I'm going to put a step in the middle. And that step is to go down to what the cost of 1 chocolate bar will be. This is often called the unitary method, and it's a nice stepping stone in the middle. I'm going to go down to 1, and then I'm going to go back up to the amount that I want. So I can see here that my first step is to divide by 8. I've got 8, I want 1, so I'm going to divide by 8. And as long as I do the same thing with the value, the cost, we're all good. We've got the same ratio or proportion again. If you're not keen doing this by hand or mentally, then it's likely you may be able to use your calculator in these sort of questions. So I'm going to use mine. I'm going to do 6 divided by 8. That gives me 3/4. I'm going to use the SD button here to change it into a decimal value, and I get 0.75. So 0.75. So 1 chocolate bar will cost me £0.75, or if you like, 75p. So now I know the cost of 1 chocolate bar. I'm going to go back up to answer the question, what's the cost of 10? So I'm going to have another step in here on my table. This time I'm going to times by 10. And I don't think I need my calculator for this because I'm just going to shift those digits to the left by 1 place. That's going to be 7.50. So I can see that 10 chocolate bars will cost me £7.50. Okay, so that's our first direct proportion question. And it's direct proportion because as one value goes up, the other value goes up. They both go up. So the more chocolate bars I have, the more it will cost me. Let's look at a second example. Still direct proportion. So we can see that if I have, or Oliver has 30 euros left over from a holiday in France, assuming the exchange rate is £1 to €1.14, how many pounds can he exchange his euros for? Once again, this is a direct proportion question. That means one is directly linked to the other. So if one value goes up, the other value also goes up. If one value goes down, the other value will also go down. That's directly linked. Let's go with our table again then. Again, we've got different units. One's pounds, one's euros, so I can't have a total again. They have to be the same in order for that to work. but I can put a little label on here. I'm going to go pounds to euros. Okay, I know I've got my exchange rate. It's 1 to 1.14. What I want is 30 euros. So once again, I'm in this situation where 1.14 going into 30 is a little bit confusing to me. How can I make that easier so I can access this question? So just as before, I am going to choose to make that 1 first and then go back up to 30 from there. So I'm going to have this extra step again. So I'm going to go, what is it if I have €1? Now I can see my clear link there. That divided by itself will be 1. So I'm going to divide by 1.14. Now this sort of question with these decimal values in here, I would be very surprised if it was on a non-calculator paper. So I'm pretty confident you can use your calculator with these ones. So I need to do the same on both sides. I know if I divide this by 1.14, I'll get 1. I need to do it for this side as well. So what is 1 divided by 1.14? Again, I'm going to press the SD button to get a decimal answer. And there we go. It's quite an awkward number, isn't it? Let's write it in. 0.877, and it carries on. So I'm going to do my dots to show that it carries on now. I don't want to get a rounding error here. I don't want to round that now because it might not be accurate enough for the final answer. I'm going to leave that as it is on my calculator display so I can use the same value for the next step. So I'll put that to one side. What is that next step? Well, let's go back and check what the question was asking us for. It wants to know how much he'd get for 30 euros in pounds. Let's put another line in. This needs to be 30 euros. Let's just make that a bit longer. Quite an easy step to choose then. I need to times by 30 if I want 1 to become 30. And once again, as long as you do the same thing in the ratio is still true. So let's times this value by 30. So remember, I left that in my calculator, which is what you want to do. So just go straight into timesing by 30. So you can see it says answer there, which means use the previous answer and times it by the value of 30. SD button again, we want the decimal 26.31578947, and it will probably carry on after that. Now because we're talking in values of money, I think I'm going to stop at the 1 because that would be £26.31. But if I'm going to round it there, really, looking at this number here as a 5, I should really round that to a 2, shouldn't I? So £26.32 if I round it after the 1. So 26.32 will be my final answer. 30 euros would exchange to £26.32. Okay, one final example. Example 3. Now, these are very common questions to get in exam papers. And what you will normally find in these questions is it will say something at the end along the lines of, you must show your working, or something like that. Or it might say, explain your answer. Something along those lines. So you have to show the steps that you've taken. You can't just guess the answer. If you just guess the answer and write nothing else, I think you can guarantee that you will get 0 marks for a question like this. They're known as better by questions. And quite often on websites and in books, you can look up better by questions and you can find more of these. So let's read the question. Again, it's just for exercise 3, this one. So do the other exercises first and replay this video perhaps for exercise 3. A supermarket sells bread buns in packs of 6, 12 and 24. The pack of 6 costs 78 pence. The pack of 12 costs £1.44. and the pack of 24 costs £3. Which pack size represents the best value for money? So you can't just guess it's 24. You'll definitely get no marks. You have to show how you arrived at that conclusion. So let's go back to our structure that we've been using. So I've got my nice table. Again, I'm talking about amounts of buns and money, so they're different units. I can't mix them up. So I've got my 6 pack here, and then the 12, and then the 24. They're all different ratios within themselves, so that's why I've got different tables. I can't mix them together. The ratios are different for each one. In this one, I've got the amount of buns, I'm going to go with B, and the cost in pounds. So this would be 6 buns costs £0.78 for 78p. This one, my packs of 12, buns will be 12, and the cost here is in pounds 144. And for 24, I've got buns being 24 and the money in pounds being 3. Now, how do I compare them? Now, you could do this in many ways. You could stick to what we've been doing previously and find what one bun is worth. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So let's do that, because if I know the cost of each bun, depending which pack it is, I can definitely answer this question with confidence. So let's look at this first one. Sorry, it's a bit squeezed in. If I want one bun, I need to divide by 6. So let's divide 78p by 6. So 78 divided by 6. I need to change, remember that's in pence. So 13, that's 13 pence. I'm going to stick with pounds in here though, because that's what I started with. So that's 0.13 pounds. I'm going to put a box around that because I think it might be a bit clearer to you. Okay. So let's work out what one bun would cost in this pack. Here I've got 12 buns. I don't want one, so let's divide by 12. Calculator again. 1.44 divided by 12. It's 0.12 pounds, so 0.12. So already in there, I can see that this is cheaper than the pack of 6. It's 1 pence cheaper per bun. So this was 13 pence per bun in this pack, 12 pence per bun in this one. Let's do the third one. So again, I want the cost of one bun. There are 24 in there, so let's divide by 24. 3 divided by 24, okay. 3 divided by 24 is 1.125. So, sorry, 0.125. There we go, so 12.5p if you like. So that is all the explanation and working I need. Once I've got all this data here, I can very clearly see that this is the best value because it was cheaper per bun than the other packs. This was 12p, that was 12.5, that was 13. Now, I'm actually going to do this question again. And I'm going to do it again because there are lots of different ways to answer this question. And some of those ways you might think are easier. So remember, in this particular one, this solution, we went for finding the cost of one bun. But I wonder if we can think of an easier way of doing it. It's equivalent. There's nothing wrong with this. It's perfectly fine. So let's go with a second way of doing it. So if you like, method 2, but it's the same question. So still we've got 6 buns costing 78p, so I'm going to go with the same structure just for consistency. So I've got buns and the money. 6 buns cost 78p. My pack of 12. So there's nothing different about this to what I'd done before. 12 buns cost £1.44, and then the 24 pack. I just want you to be thinking, what is the alternative approach to this question? There we go, so we're ready to answer it. Now for me, I've noticed that 6, 12 and 24 all go into 24. 24 goes into it once, this goes into it twice, and this goes into it 4 times. So as long as I've got a value for the same amount of buns, I can answer this question. So instead of making them all into 1 bun and what the value is, I could make them all into 24 buns and I'd still be able to tell which was the best deal. So I don't need to do anything with this last one. It's already 24 buns, and perhaps that's a slight advantage to doing this method. There's slightly less work because I can leave this as it is. 24 buns cost £3 for the packs of 24. This one, if I want to make that 24, I'd need to double it. And that's a little bit easier than what we were doing before, isn't it? We were dividing values by 6 and 12. Perhaps doubling is a little bit easier, so you might choose this method instead. So I want to know what 2 lots of this pack is. So 1.44 times 2. Don't really need a calculator for that, but for consistency I'm going to use it. 1.44 times 2 is £2.88. So 24 buns is £2.88. If I'm buying packs of 12, let's block these off again because I did it before. Helps them stand out a bit. And let's do the same trick for the top value. So packs of 6. If I want 24 buns there, remember we're going to make all of them into 24. I need to times by 4. So I want 4 lots of 78p. So 4 times 0.78 is £3.12. £3.12. Let's block that off. Now, can I answer that question again? Yes. They're all into 24, the cost of 24 buns. If I bought those in packs of 24, it would cost me £3. If I bought them in packs of 12, it would cost me £2.88. And if I bought them in packs of 6, it would cost me £3.12. So once again, I arrive at the same answer. This is still the best value as it should be, but I've just shown it in a different way. And you might prefer that method, going up instead of down.